here's how you might look at the market on a spectrum, okay? And on one end of the spectrum is free free advertising supported models, tools, open source, I think, maybe, right? So that's kind of one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is you build something yourself at an enterprise level and everything that goes into it, like you got a better understanding of the cost of that. And then you have to maintain it, train, all the training costs, maintenance costs, everything it costs to keep it up, which these are related to the success of the network, because if you're not current in your network and it's not up and you've made a promise that it will be up, it's a big problem. And then in the middle is kind of a distributed or shared environment, a SaaS, what's called a SaaS model. And those can be on a subscription basis. The thing that's unique about this marketplace is that most of those models, when it's transactional, they would charge per seat or they would charge per usage. And the problem in this environment is that when you do that, you actually discourage the participation. And you can't budget for it. So it's a variable cost model. So what we found is that it's much better to have an enterprise pricing on an annualized basis over the course of the business, like Mike said, but that's enterprise appropriate. And so you look at the total cost of ownership, it's kind of, you have a range of options is the other thing. The other thing is you take a model like Twitter, hey, it's free and you can get properly used, it can have amazing results. Mark, I'll give you many examples of that.
Thank you. Great.
There's a question in the back.
Quite a lot about do that. I was wondering if you have experience in major challenges other than incentives, for example, joining the system and really avoiding the output and how you do that.
Sure. So it's incentives and what happens when the crowd starts abusing the system.
Yeah, I'll take that one actually. So when we started programming contests, it was obviously a concern of ours that we're going to have hackers. Hackers are going to hack, and they're going to figure out ways around the rules or the regulations. And at the beginning of the launch of Topcoder, we were essentially running competitions like a chess match. You go in, you compete against somebody, you get a rating, and you'd leave. So we were, most of us in the management team have a technical background, we were very defensive. So we thought of every way that we might be able to prevent cheating. And we built a lot of software to monitor it. And it's kind of like, if you say that they're patrolling you by radar, they actually think you are. What we found out was by opening up the competition and the data and the collaboration to the entire community, the community polices itself. The network ends up being a much more effective way to kind of enforce rules and regulations. I mean, we're at a point we have thousands and thousands of posts per day in our threads, and if somebody uses language inappropriately, they'll basically electronically be escorted out of the forum. It's amazing. It's a network's it takes nurturing at the beginning, but most of the negative things that we expected were kind of didn't happen. They were handled by the community themselves. And to give you an idea, in my experience, we didn't have that until we got to about 10,000 people. For us, that was the number where we said, at this point, that community is kind of running the company for the most part. That's what we joke about. We no longer run the company; the network does.
One small thing that's not necessarily a downside risk, but it's a challenge in that you're opening up a lot of things and democratizing them. So you're vulnerable because you're making things transparent. So we've had instances where we'd say, hey, we recommend asking these questions, and folks have pushed back. Hey, we don't want to ask that, because then people would actually see how far off these software projects are, or how just into the weeds we are, and that's kind of the point. So it's more of a philosophical, sort of cultural thing within a company that you've got to wrestle with and see. Does that benefits of knowing the truth outweigh the risks of everyone seeing that there's some potential bad information?
And just to agree with that point, sharing your dirty laundry is a must in establishing a real network, and it has to be full integrity.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Disagree.
In terms of incentives, I found that paying trivial amounts of money has diminishing returns, because then people go, well, it was $20 last week, what's it going to be next? But if you give them a coffee mug, they'll do anything for that coffee mug. There's no, sort of hard value to that. And especially if it's uniquely designed and something that they sort of put on their desk and things. Yes, sir.
Perhaps this is just theoretically untenable given the whole idea of the technology crowds. But is there ever any attempt to use analysis to optimize the outcome when you're doing a collaborative environment to create something? Inherently, some people are going to be better at predicting things than others.
That's right.
You create individuals or segments. This is a question. Do people do this? You create individuals or segments that you could say, we're going to weight this.
Right.
Or does that not work because it is the crowd you're looking at?
Yeah, because you can look for a bias within a group of people, or multiple biases. I mean, in a market, as you probably know, the smart people win. I mean, the stupid people don't win in markets. And so when you create a market in information, the people that have the most information the fastest are the ones that are going to rise to the surface. And so as you do that in time, you can say, hey, wow, these are the people like I talked about earlier. If we say, here's finance and marketing and technology folks, we ask them these questions over these time horizons, we can see that finance is a bit pessimistic, systemically over time, and the sales folks are a bit optimistic. So when we ask them questions and then we receive answers back, we can adjust that because there's a bias within the sales folks. So yeah, I would say that you're looking for the sort of collective answer, but you're also looking for the behind. Hey, what does this particular person or group say? Because it really is, about identifying a bias. Because you're not getting truly unfiltered information, and this is a way of encouraging truth.
How do you address outliers in a predictive model?
Outliers in the sense of?
Like cognitive outliers. So if you have a unique point of view, it may not be the dominant point of view, but it might be very powerful. So how do you?
Absolutely. Well, it's not averaged up. So you could have a market of 100 people and one guy that knows the answer, and knows that he knows the answer, and he comes in, bets big, huge. Hey, this is what's going to happen. And then that's all you need. Because in my opinion, it's not that you're putting in the system together to capture everyone's opinion and magic happens. It's you're putting in a system to collect, to stack the deck in your favor, that you're asking the right people. And so you could have a small, very small sliver of folks who actually know the answer, and then the rest kind of know some of the answer. Their tacit knowledge overlaps. When you put it all together, it's going to create this picture. But yeah, you can have one or just a few people that know the answer and then can tell you, and then the rest are just sort of more